Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sheila's Social Studies. In today's video, we're going to stick with westward migration and we're going to stick with the Great Plains and some land grant acts. The United States government created two land grant acts that helped open the West to settlers in 1862. The Homestead Act gave 160 acres of government land to farmers to live on free of charge. All that was required was to build a house on the land and to farm it. Now, Americans from every wealth bracket were able to move west and acquire land to live on. There was so much land in the West that the Homestead Act gave away free farming land until 1988. The other act that would open and control lands out west was the Morrill Act. The Morrill Act gave federal land to states to sell the land in order to fund colleges to teach agriculture and engineering. Remember that there were so many Americans from every wealth and education bracket moved west because of these land grants. Many of these settlers needed to learn how to farm to keep their land. The result of these two acts was the migration of many settlers like women, immigrants, and African Americans. Thousands of Southern African Americans, known as exodusters, moved to Kansas. Women were an important force in the settling of the frontier. Women like Annie Bidwell, the founder of Chico, California, supported many social causes. Harsh life on remote farms led farmers to form communities, creating churches and schools. Children helped with many chores on the farm as well. The Great Plains area has a type of grassland that is different than on the East Coast. People who were farmers that broke up the tough grass on the plains earned the nickname sod busters. Because of the hard landscape, mechanical farming became common in the 1880s and the 1890s. Farmers began dry farming, growing hardy crops such as red wheat. The crops were shipped east by train and then overseas. The abundance of grains grown in the Great Plains resulted in the area being called the breadbasket of the world. Between 1860 and 1900, the United States population more than doubled, and because of the amount of land given by the federal government, the number of farms tripled. With the help of the Industrial Revolution and the improvements of the mechanical reaper, farmers could harvest a bushel of wheat 20 times faster than in 1900 than they could by hand or earlier mechanical reapers in 1830. This faster processing of wheat led to problems with the farms on the plains. More farmers and greater productivity led to overproduction, which led to lower prices. Farm incomes fell, and many farmers lost their farms and homes because of that overproduction and lower price. Lots of them became tenant farmers. By 1880, 1/4 of all farms were rented by tenants. Farmers formed associations to protect their interests. Associations like the National Grange of the Patrons of Husbandry was a social and educational organization for farmers. The Grange called for laws to regulate railroad rates. During the late 1880s, the railroad was the only available option for farmers to transport their grains to the east or west coasts. Unfortunately for the farmers, the railroad had a monopoly in transporting grain. The railroad system could set the prices on transporting grain no matter how high. Because of this, the Supreme Court ruled in 1877 that the government could regulate railroads. However, only a few years later in 1886, that government decided that it could only regulate railroad companies doing business across state lines. The clash between the federal government and the mighty and powerful railroad would erupt over regulation for years to come. In 1887, Congress passed the Interstate Commerce Act in 1887 to provide national regulations for trade, but were not able to enforce them. Now, the U.S. had been on the gold standard since 1873, resulting in deflation. Because of this, many farmers supported the unlimited coining of silver and the backing of paper currency with silver. In 1890, Congress passed the Sherman Silver Purchase Act to increase the amount of silver purchased for coinage, but it did not help farmers much. In response, in 1892, the Farmers' Alliances formed the Populist Party to have power and a candidate that would represent them. The Populist Party supported government ownership of the railroads and communication systems, free silver, and labor regulations. To help bring power and influence to the Populist Party, it supported William Jennings Bryan as the Democrat in the election of 1896. Bryan was a politician from Nebraska and supported the silver coinage. He was an influential speaker, but his defeat marked the end of the Farmers' Alliance and the Populist Party. So was that the end? By 1870, only small portions of the Great Plains remained unsettled. U.S. officials allowed homesteaders to settle the Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma, in 1889. Settlers claimed more than 11 million acres of former Indian land in the Oklahoma land rush. Was that the end? Frederick Jackson Turner was a historian, and he argued in his frontier thesis that the frontier had ceased to exist in the United States by the early 1890s. So you make that decision. Was the frontier over in the 1890s? Have we settled everywhere in the United States? I'll see you next time.